Yeah, and that's going to make your job. You're going to be very busy between now and next December. There's no question about that. So,
Yeah,
Ryan, let's dive into it. Let's get into it, right? Let's begin, and we're going to begin. We're going to go basically alphabetical order, all right? And
sure.
we're going to go D line to linebacker first. So we're going to start off with the D line, and let's start off with Keon Keeley.
Hmm.
Obviously, he is a kid that has just skyrocketed up the rankings. You can see his rankings there on that list over there. On 3 Sports, obviously has him as a 5-star, the number 4 player in the country. 247 has him at number 25. Rivals at number 27. ESPN at number 34. If it's possible, I would argue that on 3 of those 4 rankings, he's underrated.
Agreed.
I just don't see 10 football players in the class of 2023 that are better than Keon Keeley. I think you can make a case that there's maybe not 5. I mean,
Right.
he is that special. And again, there's a couple things working for him. Number one, tools. We'll dive into the film. We're going to talk about his strengths as a player, but the tools are there. He's
Mhm.
got the frame, the projection is there, and he's been money in big games. He's produced. So it's not just, oh, he's toolsy, but he doesn't know how to play. Kid
Right.
had 16 and a half sacks this year. He embarrassed Arch Manning on national TV. I mean, this kid, Ryan, really has all the tools. And you don't often see Notre Dame get a kid ranked that high at defensive line or really anywhere, especially one from Florida. And I don't think that part should go undiscussed in this breakdown is the fact that you got a 5-star from Florida. That's going to help you when you try to recruit those other kids from Florida. And we're going to have a piece on this. Brian Smith has talked about this. Notre Dame is hitting Florida hard.
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman's already been down here twice in the last 3 weeks. He was in Miami. He was in South Florida today. He's been to
Hmm.
see Keon already. Chad Bowden and Marcus Freeman have both already been to Florida to see Jaylen Brown. They're hitting the state hard. Chancey Stuckey was down in Florida today.
Yep.
Having 2 commits from the state already, one being a 5-star, the other one being a big name guy in Cedric Irvin Jr., is not going to hurt Notre Dame's future recruiting. And I think that's something that we talk about from a recruiting standpoint. The first thing you talk about with Keon Keeley is just the reputation alone is going to help Notre Dame from a recruiting standpoint.
Oh, for sure. And there's multiple things I want to hit on real quick is the fact of when it's funny. I felt like you were reading my mind for a second because I was literally looking at this and saying, how can you have him outside of the top 10? And that is not
Is that
something.
sucking up for your we're going to disagree on a lot of things comment the other day? Is that making up for
No.
that?
Uh, I'm going to get a shirt that says, I disagree with Brian. Okay. We're going to make that work. That's going to be a brand. But
You can have
seriously,
no
man,
IB logos associated with that shirt whatsoever.
copyright infringement. But yeah, I honestly, man, like I can't believe I mean, because again, people are gonna come to this channel that aren't, on the message board and don't know that we're not, I mean, of course we're fans to a degree, but like there's not a bias here, right? Like
Mhm.
this kid, the first time I saw him, and you know that I'm pretty harsh when I do evaluations.
Mhm.
I really can get. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm harder on NFL draft Notre Dame prospects than most people are. But like I texted you and I said like this kid's a first round pick if he's
Mhm.
developed correctly. Like it's just outstanding the type of talent that he has. So I don't understand the rankings. I would love to honestly just to sit down with the 247
Mhm.
person making a decision or Rivals or ESPN and just kind of understand why they made their decision. Not necessarily to argue. Like I just honestly want to understand it.
Mhm.
And I mean, to your second point, getting into Florida is paramount, right? Like we always talk about this team needs to get faster at certain positions. They need to get more athletic. Not
Mhm.
much more speed than going down to Florida. Like you think about the Floridas, the Texas, the Californias, like those are the states that you think about when you think about producing college talent, producing NFL talent, producing speed. Getting down to Florida, I think is paramount. And having a guy like Keon Keeley, we talked about last show about how Dante Moore can kind of be a transcendent player in the way that of a recruiter for the class if they land him. Keon Keeley's the same way. If they can hold on to him and he's a 5-star and he's this caliber player, who doesn't want to come play with Keon Keeley?
Right.
Honestly, especially when you're coming all the way from Florida, all the way up north to South Bend. Like I think that speaks paramount to where they are right now as far as how they're targeting, how they're recruiting, and just the point of emphasis on getting down to Florida. I think
Yeah.
I don't think you honestly can't quantify it in my opinion to how important it is. It is a great start to see.
$20 says if Keon Keeley decommitted the next time they have rankings come out, he'd be a top 10 guy.
Number one.
There's no question he's in the top 10 at that point in time. So props to On3 for putting him up there even as a committed player. So, like Ryan, let's kind of dive into what we like about Keon Keeley. And we kind of kept it to 5 things we like about each of these guys. We could have expanded this list much deeper with Keon. But I think the first thing you'll notice, and we're going to get into the film here in a second, exceptional length, great frame. And you've talked about it I don't know if you said it publicly, but you and I have talked about it. Like, this kid's going to be, he's not going to be 230, 235 for very long, right?
260, 265 in like a couple years. Like, I don't even think it's going to take until he graduates, whether he leaves after his 3rd season or whether he makes it to the 4th year. Like this, I don't think there's any reality where this kid by his sophomore campaign, or at least the summer going into his junior, that this kid is 260, 265. Like, this frame is clean. There is not an ounce of bad fat on there. And vines for arms, vines. Right. Everything is long.
And broad shoulders, too. That's a real important thing, because those narrow-shouldered guys are the ones that tend to have a problem putting on the weight. Keon has broad shoulders. You look, he's got big hands. He's got big feet.
Calves.
You can see the lower body is going to, like, his core is going to add 10 to 15 pounds in the abdominal area to the thigh area when he gets into a college strength program. The other thing, too, about a kid like him, that he is already 235, 6'6" kids tend to kind of have that fill out period later, though, because their bodies are still growing so much. So as you're growing up, you don't often grow out unless you're just a naturally huge kid, right? Like a Blake Fisher, for example. So by the time he's a freshman, you're going to see, I won't be shocked if he's close to 250 by the time he's a freshman in college. I really won't be shocked. And here's an important thing. He comes from a really good program with a veteran coach that knows what he's doing. Yeah. And that means he's not going to put a bunch of bad weight on him. It's not going to be a bunch of, we got to get you to 250, And this is why Coach Dom's put so many guys into college, because people know you're going to get good, well-coached, fundamentally sound players that know what they're doing from Berkeley Prep. And that's an important thing too, because a lot of times, Ryan, you see these kids that come from programs that aren't run well. There's a lot of things you got to get off of them. Bad weight, bad technique. Keon's going to come here well-coached and well prepared, and the foundation's going to be strong, because Keon is we'll dive into the film, and we'll kind of talk about some things he can improve upon. But this is a kid that made a big jump fundamentally, which I think helps too. Number 2, he's an explosive athlete. Yeah. His burst on the edge is outstanding. He flies off the ball. When he keeps his pads low and the effort is there, he explodes off the edge more than you expect from a guy that's 6'6". He flies off the edge, in my opinion.
And when you have both of those, and we'll talk about why more it's important to have both the length and the explosiveness when we hit the film. But basically the short of it is that you're playing in increased space, right? So you need to be able to cover a lot of ground. And some guys can win with length. Some guys can win with just being an explosive athlete. But when you have both, that's when we're talking about rare, in my opinion, because you now can win in multiple ways. How do I know that Keon Keeley can improve and get better with his nuance as a pass rusher that we'll talk about, the hand usage and all that good stuff? It's because he has the tools to do it, right? Like, he's not going to be a guy that is just a one-trick pony speed guy that once he is countered at the top of the arc, he's going to kind of have to understand how to do an inside counter. This kid can win with length and athleticism around the track, and that's when a guy is almost impossible to stop in a one-on-one situation. This is a kid where, like, look, we're going to leave a tight end in. We're going to chip with it back. Like, this is what this kid could be, in my opinion.
I'm not saying Keon is this, because I don't think it's fair to compare a high school junior to a future Hall of Famer, right? So I'm not making a direct comparison saying he's that. But I'm making this example in that what makes guys like Von Miller so rare is you don't see a lot of guys with the speed to power ratio that a Von has, where not only is he an explosive athlete, but he's powerful. Sure. And I think that's the thing that often gets overlooked when looking at Keon Keeley. And that's kind of go down to point 4. You talk about the instincts, that feel on the edge, the ability to bend. He just has a natural feel on the edge. But the combination of length, explosiveness, speed, and his speed is twofold. And it's as important for a pass rusher. Yep. The burst is important. The close is even more important.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, especially when you're playing better teams. right? It may not matter when you're playing 9 of the teams on your schedule, but you want to beat Ohio State, you want to beat Clemson, you want to beat Bama, you want to beat Georgia. You've got to have both. He has both. But the fact that his long arms are so powerful, like just in the hand strength, he's got really heavy hands. That to me is the thing that truly makes Keon makes him not a top 25 guy, but a top 5 guy. Is that combination right there, Ryan?
Yeah. Now, and we'll talk about setting an edge and why obviously the hand strength is important. And I think that again, when we're talking about this type of athlete, and you were talking about his just closing speed, this is the kind of kid, like usually for me, like you would try to option this kid, right? Like you would try to read this kid and just try to make him kind of guess and then make him guess wrong, right? But for this kid, quarterback keeps, and maybe he's not even in the best position, he can redirect and he can close in a hurry, so he can really honestly make the read wrong, which is, and even though it's technically not wrong, which I think is game changing. It's then the hand strength combined with that length, when he was able to establish and continue to develop his frame, then we're talking about him to be able to lock out at the point of attack, which is going to allow him to get off of more blocks just with his ability to read and then make, stack and shed, which obviously you hear more for a linebacker, but it's obviously very important also setting an edge.
If you're going to be a great run defender, you need to do that. And that's what we were talking about earlier, Ryan, is he's not just a pass rusher. Right. And he's got potential to be a really good run defender. And it's that right there. And then finally, the fifth one was just the ability to the production. Right. And this one said he's not just some raw kid. 35 tackles for loss, 16.5 sacks last year.
It's pretty good.
That doesn't suck. That doesn't suck. He's pretty good. So let's get into the film, Ryan. Let's get into the film room here and
let's do it.
Kind of talk about what we like about Keon Keeley. I think the first thing you're going to see right there, I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna put this on the whole thing, so y'all don't need to see us. We can focus on Keon there. The first thing there is, look at that. I mean, that's just like I said, broad shoulders, big feet. Look how big his feet are. I mean, the reason I point to the feet is when a kid has big feet and big hands, that tells me he's got an outward growth spurt coming. Right? Not a vertical growth spurt, but an outward growth spurt when a kid's already 6'6". He's going to keep filling out. You can see he's not skinny, right? That's the thing. He looks skinny from far away film. Like when we'll get into some film here, I'll kind of pull up this first clip. When you get up to and you see him sort of on film, like right now, right? Like he can look skinny from far away.
Sure.
But the reason I wanted to make sure those pictures got seen is because you see up close, he's not a skinny kid. No. He's just so long and tall that it makes him look skinnier. And that's why we have the confidence that he's going to be he's not going to be Julian Aguilar. He's not going to struggle to get up to 240, right? He's there now almost. But he's got the frame. And of course, the athleticism is the part we love the most. So you'll see him. He's number 88. I mean, there's the little power move here. I mean, come on.
And that's where hand strength comes in, obviously, right there with the nice little jab right into the center of the chest. But this is why the speed and the range that I talked about is so important. Because this offensive tackle, look at him. The offensive tackle already overset or turned his shoulders towards the sideline. He is terrified of Keon running right past him. And then Keon decides, like, hey, I'm just going to put my arm right down the middle of your chest, and I'm just going to convert speed to power, and I'm going to destroy your quarterback.
And that's not a small high school offensive lineman there.
It's not. No.
And he has no chance of getting his hands on Keon here. None. Because of that length and that power that he has there. And if you watch the kid play in a game, he plays with a lot of energy. Like he talks, and I mean that in a good way. Like you see that right there. Like he's a kid that plays with a lot of fire. Finishes at the quarterback very well. What you're going to see on these first couple clips too, and we like to point out, areas where kids got to improve. His pad level, I think, is inconsistent. Right. I think you'll also see his get off can be a little bit inconsistent. He doesn't always just explode off, which is young kids tend to be that way. But when he comes off with if his pad level improves, which I think it will, it's a technical thing that can be improved. And as his consistency improves, because that's what happens when you're as gifted as he is. It's like we said about Deion Colzie, you don't know what you don't know till you don't know it. You go up against Blake Fisher the first, week of fall, spring ball and in 2023, and you're like, oh, okay. I didn't play anybody like this in high school.
No.
And then you say, okay, I got to bring it another level. And that's the thing that excites me about Keon is there's just another level for him. But You can see that. You can see there again. I think he plays a little high. You
Yep.
can see him come off. He plays high here, but and this is one of those ones where the speed isn't there on the get off, but watch when he turns it on. Right, look at that. Keep that guy off his length. That shed right there. That's that block destruction Ryan was talking about earlier. Just uses his hands, slaps that kid's hands away. Then you see that closing speed. Because look at the burst. Like when he gets around the edge, Ryan. He doesn't really come off with great speed. He's kind of reading the tackle, kind of seeing what he's going to do. And then when he turns that gear on, like bam, it's like he comes around. The way he comes around to the edge, Ryan, you'd think he came off the line like a million miles an hour.
Well, one thing that people always talk about, Brian, that I actually like to use for defensive ends sometimes is they talk about for defensive backs transitional quickness. So that's obviously out of their pedal traditionally. This is transitional quickness for me because how Keon wins here, like you said, not a great get off, but he's able to gain extension up the track. And then once he is able to just create a little bit of space, you see that speed that he's able to just maintain around the outside track, which is, I mean, that honestly, like you'll see a lot of guys get up to that third step up the arc and try to turn, and their ankles and hips are just a little tight, so they can't really flatten and run.
It is hard. Yeah, it is hard to gain speed while engaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like we've talked a lot about his explosiveness. What I like about this is on the first 3 plays of his highlight film, and you see it on film too, he's using power moves.
Yeah.
On really his first 3 pass rushes. I mean, he's using straight power moves. Now, again, this doesn't work against Blake Fisher, right?
Right.
My point, however, is you see I mean, he's in his stance and his fingers are below his knees. Like, look at that. Like,
it's not a good stance. And that also does work a little bit to your point about like, hey, his pad level's bad, right? But like that's not a good 2-point stance to begin with. And then once we start working more out of a 3-point stance, then obviously that'll remedy that a little bit.
But I'm glad he's in this type of 2-point stance because it allows me as an evaluator to see how long he is. And that was my point about his fingers being below his knees. Like he's in a pretty much an upright stance. Right. And his fingers are below his knees. That is long. And you can see the other thing too is here, he's not on the ball.
Nope, he is
like
not.
He's off the ball a little bit. Like, his foot is on the butt of the interior off defensive lineman. You can see the length here. This guy down here is a little bit. He's at a different place here, and he still gets off like this. I mean, this kid, and you see the length there again. Once he locks his arms out, let me see if I can stop it at the right time. Once he locks his arms out, that tackle's hands are no longer on Keon. They're just because he's not long enough. That because when I think it's a good time to kind of talk about this, Ryan. When we talk about length, that's why it's important for a defensive lineman to have length, but it's also why offensive linemen with shorter arms have a tougher time in the NFL. Like Liam Eichenberg, why some people didn't think he could play tackle is because of this. If this guy's got 35-inch arms and you got 33-inch arms, when you both lock out, somebody's losing that battle.
Right.
And that's the that's the aspect of it. But that length is just really impressive. And he is violent. That's the thing I like about him. He's a violent football player. Yep. And I love that. Like he arrives to the quarterback with force. He has bad intentions on the football field. And I mean that in a complimentary way. He's not trying to hurt anybody, or it just means he's trying to punish people. This is that bend that around the edge. See how he leans into that guy, just kind of gets around the edge.
And you could just see the ankle. Just watch the angle of the ankles here. Once he is able to turn here and then run, that's just not natural for a 6'6" guy. Usually 6'6" guys can struggle with that ability. Like you kept bringing up Von Miller, who's a 6'3" guy, right? Like that's more a natural thing for a guy of that height. But for a 6'6" guy, sometimes it's hard for that ankle flexion, but he has it. And again, once he's able to use that length and to corner and run, you can see just how flexible he is. Like he's not breaking his momentum. If anything, he's gaining speed, which again is just, it's honestly kind of absurd for a guy his length and his size. That's the same thing. That you see that 2-point stance. You can see the length just off the snap of the ball. Let's attack. It gets right into his chest. You'll hear a lot of guys when they'll talk about the long arm, right? One arm is longer than two. There he's going to stab and he's going to get that arm right in the middle of that chest. And once he's able with those, I don't know what his arm length is, obviously, but with the length that he has, like the ability for him to lock out. Offensive tackles just can't recover against a guy this fast and with this much length. And he forces a fumble, which never hurts. Never hurts the cause.
I think he flashes quick hands.
Yep.
I don't think he shows it all the time. And that's another one of those things I look at and say, you look at it and say, hey, listen, I think that's an area where, I love this double move. I think that's an area where once his technique improves, you're going to see him even be more disruptive on the edge because he doesn't really use his hands, the quickness of his hands the way that I think he should. This double move, this change of direction right here is impressive.
Yeah.
That quick outside jab, and that guy has no chance.
I would love to see the sequence in this game too, because I imagine number 70, the left tackle for the opposing team, I imagine that Keon was probably killing him with a little speed outside for multiple reps before this. And then all of a sudden he's like, all right, here comes the inside counter. There we are, buddy. And I definitely agree with you. Like once we get him to a more nuanced perspective of hand usage, when we're talking about multiple counters and not just a long arm, not just an inside rip. Like we're talking about now, like, he got stopped. Now he's able to use his hand quickness and get hands off and then hit another move. That's when we're talking about this kid being unstoppable, because then the inside counters will always be there. The ability to, hit the ghost move, hit the stab, hit the club rip. Like there's a lot of different possibilities for him as a pass rusher.
Now, these next set of clips, this is against Bishop Newman Isidore, right? I think is the name of the high school. This is against Arch Manning. Now, I want you to notice something. His get off in this game was a little different. And that's actually something that I love. Now, I would like to say, hey, I'd like for you to always have that get off, that he'll learn that, right? But what I love is this was on national TV. This is the brightest lights he's ever played in front of, and he dominated. And that tells me something, because not every kid does that, especially in high school. You see these kids get on national TV and they kind of don't really shine because they've never really been on that kind of stage, right? What I love about Keon is this was the biggest game of the year from a spotlight standpoint, and he absolutely destroyed this. I mean, he was the best player on the football field that day, and it wasn't close.
Yep.
It was not close.
And it's never a great idea on that last play to not block Keon Keeley. Just want to put that out there.
Yes.
Obviously, they're bringing a little bit of pressure, so we have to make an adjustment of blocking, and then he's.
By the way, this is something this is what I kind of talked about this year. I would like to see them do more of this with Isaiah Foskey. Part of the reason they don't block him, and against high school, college kids are going to make better checks, but they switched him to the other side of the line and just brought him to snap.
Yeah,
and you're going to get more blown assignments when you do things like that. And this is one of those times where I say, look, he's kind of playing an off the ball linebacker position, and he kind of comes up and comes off the edge, and there you go.
Duke used to do that with Chris Rumpf a couple years ago, right? Like they're good defensive end. They would literally stand him up over A, or they would stand him up dead in the middle of the field, and they would just bring him for multiple gaps, and they would just keep you guessing.
I like this play because he's not coming off the ball slow. He's reading. He has the quarterback, from what I can tell. And when you watch this play, because the linebacker's crashing, so my guess is that this guy has dive and Keon's got quarterback to running back, right? That's normally how you keep that backside contained. So he's not coming off slow here. He's reading. But once he realizes the running back's got the ball, watch him redirect and just explode to the running back.
And this is what we're talking about with the closing speed here, just the ability for him to just explode. And we saw that one play. We didn't really highlight it, but there was another play on the backside, which it wasn't a read. I think it was just a traditional, it may have just been like an outside zone, and he came back from the backside. And it's just, again, for 6'6" and a guy that could be 265, he's going to be able to carry that 265 and not lose any of this athleticism. I think that's another thing that we didn't really point out, is the fact of some guys can gain that weight, and then other guys gain weight, but they sacrifice athleticism. With this type of frame, I don't think that, again, 260, 265 easy without sacrificing any of his explosiveness or his closing speed.
Now, this is something I like, Ryan. Okay, let me explain what I mean by like. This is not a good spin move, right? Because he's a junior in high school and he's still learning that. But I love the fact he's working on counter moves. Because it's going to get better as he gets older, and of course once he gets into college, and Al Washington starts coaching him up, those kind of things. Obviously, these things will improve, but he has a natural. He can spin naturally. It's not tight, right?
Right.
the technique and all that will improve. But I just love the fact that he's trying to use counter moves, because what can happen with kids like this is, and this is kind of goes to your point earlier when he had that inside move, he clearly knows you're trying to get out. Look, like this is the kid like you talked about that first clip. This kid's just like, okay, I can't block this guy. I got to fly outside.
Watch his chest. Yep. For the people watching, watch his chest. The offensive tackle's chest is literally even with the sideline. You never want that.
Keon's setting this kid up. He knows this is coming. And that's why he kind of comes off with the angle that he does, and then boom, hits him with the spin move. So he set this kid up for this move. That's that natural feel that we talked about earlier. The kid's a smart football player too. He's not just a freaky athlete that God blessed him with these great physical tools. God also blessed him with a good mind, very good student, but also a really smart football player. And you can see it in his attempts to run counter moves. Now, again, the technical aspects of those moves have to get better.
Sure.
But, and this is an example of people ask about, like, do you have any bad plays? If you know what you're looking for, you can see negatives and things, error improvement in the good plays.
For sure.
And this is one of those examples. This is pad level that against a Blake Fisher or a this is a tight end against a Michael Mayer gets you knocked down, right? Yeah. His base isn't strong. He's got to improve that. But what we can highlight is the athleticism.
Sure.
And just the motor that he plays with. But this is where I say, Ryan, the pad level, I think the consistency with the get off, those kind of things are areas where he's going to need to continue to work, which is kind of what I'm excited about, because he's far from being a finished product. This is against Arch again.
Yep. And I love that play too, Brian, because I think that he's
the previous one.
Yeah, the previous one. Okay. I think that he's going to figure that out quick too, because I mean, honestly, if I'm on the Notre Dame offensive side in practice and I see that he's playing this high, I'm pulling guards coming right at him, and we're gonna baptize him a little bit, for the lack of a better term. And I think that's when he'll start to really kind of reiterate to himself, like, I need to play with better pad level, or this is going to be a continued problem, obviously.
What I like about him too, Ryan, is he made a bunch of improvements from sophomore to junior year.
Sure.
And so he's clearly working on his game. I mean, you don't make the tech, like these double moves, the hand play, these things don't happen just because you're, gifted. These are things that say this kid's being coached and this kid's working on his craft. And that's what separates the great 5-star athletes from the guys that play like 5 stars when they get to college. This is what we talk about, explosiveness. He takes 2 steps and just drills this kid.
Yep.
Like he's coming off, he's reading, and then bam, just drills him. Love this kid.
Creates a lot of power in some very short
man,
space,
I love this kid's film. Yeah. This kid just like, nope. This running back's like, nah, not happening. Oh, I quit. I see Keon. It's over.
Oh, man.
He just has a thirst for the ball, and that's something I think great pass rushers to me have that. It's not just about athleticism. It's not just about technique. You've got to have a hunger for it. And that's what I love about Keon. Like this kid, and you can just see the excitement he has when he makes those kind of plays. Like that's what he loves to do. This is another play. This is not a bad get off, right? Because he's got basically backside. He's got bootleg. He's got cutback. So he's showing patience, but then he can just take 2 steps and just arrive at the ball with some force.
And obviously this play, there's a bad snap, so it messes up timing a little bit. But you're not blocking this defensive end on the backside because he's not supposed to make this play.
Right. That's another play. I mean, this isn't really a highlight, but I like the patience here, right? Because he's clearly backside. He's playing quarterback. Right. And that's the thing. Okay. I like the angle here. You can really see it from this clip. See how he kind of takes like an upfield. He's kind of aiming towards the outside shoulder of the quarterback. That's good. Because your goal here is you don't want to go too wide where the quarterback can just step inside of you, but you have to take at least somewhat of a wide angle to where if the quarterback's going to get around you, he has to bow. Because if he has to bow, he's done. Right. What you can't do is come too narrow where he just takes 1 step back, works lateral, and then he's got the corner. So this is a sound football play. This isn't an impressive play. This isn't like, look at the 5-star athleticism. This is just a smart, sound football play to me.
I do like the little I like the side eye from the quarterback though. He saw Keon. He's like, man.
Nope.
Bad read.
Oh crap. Keon's coming. Nobody blocked him again. I'm out of here. Yeah. Yeah. This is against Arch Manning again.
All right, that's where length comes in again, right? We're
Yep.
going to get our hands in the passing game. And
Well,
I think there's there positives and negatives to that one too. Is like there's obviously like no plan there, right? Like he's just going right into the middle of this guy's chest. He's kind of reading, like he doesn't really know what he's doing per se. At least on this play, I don't know if it was just like he expected a run or whatever it was.
That's
but
kind of what I was thinking, Ryan. Because if you look,
yeah,
the whole D line kind of does that.
yeah,
Like the whole D line just kind of like reading, like maybe they were getting hit with some quick game a lot. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like that's kind of when I'd have to go back and watch the game again because this was on ESPN. But like the whole line is, but even then, you don't want to go right down the middle of a guy in that instance because a Blake Fisher, when you go to jump like that, is putting his hands right through your chest.
Right.
But I mean, he didn't even bat this down. He picks it off.
Well, if you're the tight end coach, aren't you saying like I think he can play both sides of the ball? Like,
Yeah.
let's,
Hey, coach, look at these hands. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Mayer's gone. You know, we can throw him a couple goal. Hey, and if that's what it takes to kind of convince him to come to Notre Dame, then do what you got to do, man.
Hey, they used to throw Julius Peppers the goal line fades once in a while. So,
oh my God, Julius Peppers was a freak.
Yes, he was.
This is again, you see the length, you see the power. You see the feel for block destruction. I think the block destruction issues he has for me, Ryan, are technical ones. And again, it's him being a junior in high school, not a junior in college, right? Like he's pretty good for a junior in high school, but it's just about projecting him to Notre Dame. But he understands the need to be a good block destructor. You know what I mean? And you can see it here. He's using his hands. He doesn't always use his hand correctly, but he's trying to use his hands. And guys like that are easy to get going because they have a baseline. I mean, again, comes from a really good high school program. He comes from a program where he's being taught he understands, hey, you got to use your hands well.
Right. And he has powerful hands and he can gain extension. But I think the thing that he really lacks right now, like on that last one, you saw, his hands are a little wide, right? Like he doesn't really understand like getting inside position, get into that chest plate. Everything's just kind of all over the place, but he has the raw tools to do it.
Again, patience here. I love the patience here. He's got to read the play out and then bam, close. I mean, that kind of closing is like, that's the kind of freaky stuff you say, what does Notre Dame lack as a football team? They don't have enough guys like this that can just do things because, like, to beat Bama, right? And this is what I'm selling to him if I'm Notre Dame. Hey, do you want to go to Bama and be like the 9th title team, or do you want to come here and be a legend?
Right.
That's the difference because don't go join Bama. Come to here and help us beat Bama because these are the things that you just can't teach, and you need more guys like this. Foskey is kind of this guy to a degree, but Keon to me is even more explosive than Isaiah is. And to have a guy that can kind of have this sort of where he can legitimately play the quarterback and the running back, you have no answers for that at this point in time. Like there's nothing you can do as a defense except, hey, we're going to have to block him. And then that kind of messes up your read stuff.
And I know everyone is really excited, including you, about some of the coaching hires we've made, right? Or that Notre Dame has made. So for Notre Dame to make these hires, if they are what we think that from the outside media perspective they can be, getting a guy like this who is literally a ball of clay. I mean, he's not a raw player per se. There is obviously some things that he needs to improve on. There's some things that he already does well, but to have good teachers now being responsible for molding this kid, I think it's enticing. It is exciting to say the least.
He's the perfect kind of 5-star prospect for me in that he's got the tools. He's got a lot of areas where he needs to be coached, but he also comes from the kind of program where he's going to have a good foundation of what to do. You don't have to teach him how to get into a stance. You just clean up a stance. You don't have to teach him, hey, you got to use your hands. You just got to help him nuance it. Hey, you need a second move. You can't just speed rush all the time. He knows that. You just have to teach him how to do it better. And that to me, because that's the kind of kid that can come in and make a plays. Oh my, this is power.
Again, not against a small kid either. Not against a small kid off the tackle. Solid size there.
Yeah, this kid thinks he's going to use his hands, and it's like, nope, sorry. Somebody forgot to cover the fullback, though.
Yes, they did.
But this is just, I mean, this kid has no chance.
Man,
I love how he leads with his hands, though. Like, his face does not touch this running back. He's got his hands on him. Now, again, is there some technical things I could, talk about here? Sure. But here's the other thing that's going to help Keon Keeley in a big way, and we haven't discussed yet. He's going to be going against Harry Heastan coached offensive linemen every day.
Right.
There's not going to be better linemen he's going to play on Saturdays than the kid he's going to face every day in practice. That's going to make him such a better player, in my opinion.
Blake Fisher and Joe Aldis Jr.
Yes.
Right? It's going to be again, baptism by fire. You're going to be facing a couple of great football players every day.
This is one of those plays where it's about, okay, this is a highlight, but it's not a highlight if you know what you're looking for, right? These are some of those things where you're saying, okay, these are the areas where Keon's got to clean some things up. Not really looking for the ball here. He's just kind of hits this kid. He's not moving his feet. He's standing straight up.
Yep.
You know, I mean, there's
extension. You see the extension though.
Yeah, but then you just see, oh, okay, I'm going to go play now, right?
Yeah, right. Yep.
And he takes 2 steps and drills a running back. So if you know what you're looking for, you can see those areas for improvement on a guy. I love the recognition here too. He's coming wide. He sees the puller. He adjusts, get back inside, and he helps make the play. I mean, it's just this kid wants no part of Keon Keeley, though. Watch this.
No.
Oh, God, I don't want to block this guy. He wants no part of Keon at this point in time.
Business decision.
When you can make a kid say, nope, nope, I ain't doing it, you're pretty good. Like Vaughn did to Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. Nope, nope, I'm done.
I'm good.
Yep.
All right.
This is another big offensive lineman he's going against.
Really
too.
big.
This is a big kid. Yeah.
It is a big kid.
You see watch this kid's back. Watch this kid's back. You see how he kind of gets stood up?
Yeah.
That's the strong hands we talk about. Gets off, gets to the guy. In college, maybe this is 15 in college. But I love it. Yep.
Oh, is this some kick coverage we're talking now? Is this some kick coverage?
Yep.
Kid that good on kick coverage. I love that.
Love the instincts here, Ryan. He's coming hard. He's coming hard on this guy. This isn't like the play against Arch's school where he was kind of reading it. He's coming on a pressure here, but he still has the awareness. Like, look, length doesn't matter if you don't know when to get your hands up, right? I mean, you got to have some instincts and intelligence on here. And this is one of those plays where, you see the length and the quickness and all that. But what you also see is this is a kid that knows how to read. He knows how to react. He's got some instincts and some intelligence in the game of football too.
Yep. He's the house call that one, though. He's the house call. Again, establishing inside position and your ability to get good vision on the ball carrier and then get off. That's
this
what you're
poor
talking
number
about.
70, man. This kid is this is a big kid just getting. Now this, you're talking about not good hand placement. This kid has horrible hand placement.
All the way outside.
Just every single snap. Like, buddy, get your hands inside. You're huge. Use your hands.
Man, and again, you see the jolts on that offensive lineman there. Like, he just dominates him at the point of attack.
But this is what I see from this. It's length and block destroy and all that stuff. But this is a kid, again, this is the feel for the game. He's not just beating up this 300-pound offensive lineman. His eyes are on the football the entire time. Like, that's the thing for me. That's that football IQ thing that I keep hitting on is he comes off this and makes this play. I mean, he reads the play. He's not just a freaky athlete. This kid knows how. His quarterback's like, come on, guys. Seriously, a little bit offsides there, but they didn't call it. They didn't call it, so it's not offsides if they didn't call it, right?
Looks like a great jump to me. Great job.
Yeah, exactly.
And that one right there, Brian, like that just like he's not even coming hard. It's just the
he's
amount
so
of,
long. He doesn't need that many steps. Yeah. Let's see take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he's there. And like I said, because he's not coming hard, he's not getting as long with those steps.
Yep.
Again, love the instincts and feel. He's making moves on the lineman, but he's seeing the game. He's seeing through the lineman. Like that's a difficult thing. That's a rare trait for a young kid, in my opinion, Ryan, is the ability to see through the guy you're fighting with. Because young kids have a tendency to focus on what's right in front of them. Keon doesn't do that. He can focus on what's in front of him while still seeing the game. And that's when I talk about that football IQ that we talk about. Like this kid is seeing the football and then gets off the football.
Especially when an offensive tackle is taking looks like a pass set, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes it so
Mm-hmm.
difficult, is because like your read is like, oh wow, he's pass setting, and then all of a sudden it's a run play.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just that impressive instincts.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's pretty good, right?
Not bad.
He's a pretty good player. He's a
Seen
pretty good
worse.
player.
Seen worse in
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah. He's a pretty good football player. So yeah, obviously big time pick up Notre Dame. I know everybody's freaking out about you got to keep him in the class and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we'll see how all that plays out. I feel good about it. I think Keon, like every player, has a right to take visits. I think that we are underestimating how much Keon likes Notre Dame.
Agreed.
I do. Now, again, I'm not guaranteeing anything to you. I don't know what's going to happen, but this is not your typical situation, in my opinion. And so, and also knowing his head coach the way that I do, I think that it's going to take a lot for him to flip. But I understand his desire to to go what's out there. When Bama calls, you listen, and I think that's right now. I think that's what this is.
Agreed.